Oh boy, this is going to be a long one. But the short version is I was Mormon until high school, then atheist, anti-theist for a couple years. Then at the end of my junior year of high school, I found paganism. Okay, now for the details. To be honest, being a Mormon fucking sucked. Because my family isn't and hasn't been the stereotypical perfect Mormon family, we drew a lot of ire from those people who saw themselves as better than us. And in the LDS church, there is a lot of those people. Sure, there was quite a lot of good people, people who use the church's teachings and morals to be better and have values that align with our own, but boy, do the other type really mess that up. It wasn't as bad when we were in Utah, from what I remember at least, but Utah is very insular and obviously extremely Mormon. Like, there's churches on every street corner. I'm not even joking. But when we moved to the Midwest, it became apparent that my family's way of being and morals were quite different. My dad in particular was the most judged of our family, which tended to rub off on the rest of us. He has tattoos and ear piercings and often shaves his head and has a long beard. And he's always been proud of that. He's in law enforcement and has been all my life. And when he went into undercover work, he basically had to look like a biker with the whole getup. But because of his job, he couldn't exactly say why he had to do all that to everyone. So he got judged, and our family got judged with him. So, with all that, I don't think I was ever really completely sold on the church and religion. I always hated going to church. It's 3 fucking hours long every Sunday, where the first hour alone feels like a whole afternoon. The best Sundays were when my family decided to leave after the first hour or not go at all. Most of these days, we either end up at Cracker Barrel or spend time as a family, or just went home, watched a movie like The Prince of Egypt or The Best 2 Years. Still love those movies to this day. And I honestly always felt more spiritually sound on those days than at any point in church or at church activities. Sure, I paid attention well enough to answer questions correctly and prayed with my family and participated, but I never read the Bible or Book of Mormon all the way through, hardly read any of them, and never on my own, and a lot of the teaching of the church just didn't do or agree with me. Mormons are known for their missionaries, the guys who go door knocking and ride on 10-speed bikes. But that proselytizing mindset starts when you're young. You're not going around handing out pamphlets all the time like Jehovah's Witnesses, but you're encouraged and told to bring up Jesus and the church at basically every opportunity of silence. They call them missionary moments, and even in my most devoted times as a kid, I never liked or even resorted to that. Outside church, it just felt inappropriate to bring up my religion with my friends or peers. Mormons also have their words of wisdom or standards that they live by. That includes things like dress modestly, which is basically one step above Amish attire, don't do drugs, which is fair, but that also includes things like caffeine, so coffee, tea, and soda are forbidden as well, and, the usual things like chastity and marrying inside the religion. None of those I ever agreed with. My family drinks coffee and soda and tea, and we were never raised to judge people for smoking or judging people for not being Mormon. The only thing my family clung to was the chastity thing, which is mostly a testament to my family being more conservative than anything. But with all that, my family didn't live up to the words of wisdom bullshit, so I never saw it as an end-all be-all thing like most Mormons do. So yeah, I was never sold on it. But like most Mormons born into the religion, I was baptized at 7 years old. 7. In the church, you're considered a religiously consenting adult at 7. Once I left the church and saw how odd of a thing that is and had introspective moments at how I was around my baptism, the more I realized how fucking insane and poisonous that is. Because tell me of any 7-year-old who will say no to being baptized when everyone around them is saying for them to do it. 7-year-old me didn't want to say no. I didn't think I had that choice. Absolutely no one told me I had any option. 7-year-old me wasn't about to go against what my grandma wanted and was so happy about me doing. You know why I got baptized? Because I wanted a bike and one of those candy cane tubes filled with M&Ms. That's it. I was usually the youngest in my age group when it came to Sunday school classes, so by then I'd seen most of my friends get baptized, and most of them got cool presents and money and things for being baptized, so I wanted that too, and the only presents I thought I could get outside Christmas and my birthday was from being baptized. So I was more than happy to do it. You know what I got? A framed picture of a covenant contract. Yes, they're actually 7-year-olds sign a contract with God, and a baptism card from my grandparents. Well, that and a lifetime of religious baggage and mental and emotional issues I'm still dealing with. When I was in middle school and into high school, I met my closest friends. None of them were Mormon, and in fact, most of them were atheist or agnostic. And by then, I was pretty over the whole church thing, so I started to drift away from it a bit more. Being a preteen and teenager who is also going into puberty with all the hormone and rebelliousness, I veered hard into quitting the church. But this didn't come completely out of nowhere. Twice in my life as a Mormon, I felt I had to resort to a sinner's prayer. I was under the age of 14, and twice I felt so ashamed of myself that I thought I was the worst sinner in the world. When I was starting puberty and the beginning of middle school, I found out about porn and masturbation. As weird as it feels to talk about, yeah, I did it, and still do enjoy those things every so often. But as you can imagine, Mormonism doesn't jive with those quite normal things. Along with my lack of connection to the church and my life being mostly with non Mormons, being fine with swearing at this point, and not much caring to follow any of the words of wisdom, I felt extremely guilty and felt like a piece of shit. First time it happened, I can't remember the exact date or age I was, but I locked myself in a bathroom and cried. I sat on the tile floor and cried, praying for God to forgive me for basically existing. Every little thing, inconvenience I'd caused, every curse word I'd said, and every non-pious action I did, I apologized for. I think I was in there for nearly an hour just crying and shaking while I prayed. The next time it happened, I think it was a couple years later, I was at church during a sacrament meeting, or the first hour of church. I was sitting with my family and bowed my head to participate in the initial prayer of the meeting, and after it was over, I felt compelled to keep praying silently. And as I kept praying, I got more and more upset and ended up doing an hours-long sinner's prayer. I was quietly sobbing to myself and shaking, not opening my eyes the entire hour-long service. I just felt the world crashing around me and laid myself bare in God's eyes and deemed to be shit. My parents could tell I was deeply upset because, if I remember, they ended up taking us home after sacrament. I don't remember if I ended up confessing what I prayed about to my parents, but I think that was the beginning of the end of being Christian for me. Because Mormons don't have anything like Catholic confession booths. Unless you want to set up a formal in-person meeting with the ward bishop and confess to a middle-aged strange man that you've sinned or whatever, you're pretty much on your own. Just you and God. And on that day and the rest afterwards, God made it pretty clear that I was not a welcome person in his religion. It's basically taken me until rather recently to realize that, and exactly what I did back then. Mostly because I'm more cognizant of religious consent, and it's been on my mind. My family's still in the church, they are still willing to and always saying stuff like they'll keep me in their prayers. But I honestly want to ask them not to, because I know I'm not a welcome thing to their God, and there's no way I can breach that topic and request it without all of them getting severely upset or even just dismissive. Since they see their God is all good, I'm kind of shit out of luck trying to explain it. Anyway, back to the rest of it. So, I was a sophomore in high school. I told my parents I no longer believed in the church and didn't want to attend. They said okay, but gave me the caveat that I had to attend on Easter and Christmas, and whenever any of my family had to do a talk assigned at church. I agreed, relieved that I didn't have to do that anymore, and after that, I fell into a bit of an anti theist hole. I followed my best friends who were very against religion and Christianity and became quite vocal about it as well. I was like that for about a year. Then I went to the hospital. In early 2015, I was checked into a psychiatric ward. For months until then, I'd gotten more and more depressed and suicidal. Got to the point where I was contemplating and planning to kill myself every single night. For months. I confessed this to my then therapist during a session at my school. She was a therapist who worked at the school. And that day, she called my parents and told them to check me in. We went to the ER in the hospital in the city, and I spent the next 5 days there. I'm not going to go into details about it, but just suffice it to say, it wasn't fun, and honestly, it didn't do much for my mental health. When I got out, I found out I was labeled a no-call, no-show at my job and got blacklisted from being hired there. So I had to suddenly find a new job. Luckily, I found one quickly and started a couple months after I got out of the hospital. It was a nice job, but with more alone thinking time at that job and independence away from the church and my family, I started to consider religion again. Not Christianity, no, but I was growing a desire to find out if there was something out there. I started praying randomly, just taking a line from one of my favorite books and asking every god out there for guidance and safety when I felt I needed something. And seemingly randomly got the urge and nudge to focus on the Greek pantheon. They were the gods in mythology I had always loved and had an interest in, so I started to pray to them specifically by name. Hermes I prayed to when I was driving to and from work. I prayed to Aphrodite because I was looking for a relationship and wanted to know if the dates I was going on were right for me. And then I was researching more into the other gods, and it just clicked. I had a small Nightmare Before Christmas wire pendant I had made myself that I used as a sort of prayer bead rosary thing. My first prayer was during a shift at my job at a Hallmark store. So you could say I found my pagan religion standing next to the First Communion and baptism gifts at a greeting card store. But it's been over 7 years since. Thanks for listening.